Welcome to Coin 6 News at 11. I'm Lisa Balick. Protests in Portland and in dozens of other cities in Oregon and Southwest Washington relatively peaceful during the daytime, but that's not the case outside the ICE facility in South Portland tonight. Tear gas, pepper bullets are being deployed for several hours.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
So it is genuinely interesting how narratives and mass political psychosis come together, because we've sat here and listened to liberals lecture us all weekend on how the No Kings protests were entirely peaceful, and this greatly undermines right-wing narratives about left-wing violence. And of course, Antifa, what is that? That doesn't even exist, and they didn't show up or commit violence. But the thing is, none of that is true at all. It is all false. As a matter of fact, Antifa did show up, and as a matter of fact, they did commit violence, particularly in, but not even excluded to, the war zone city of Portland, Oregon, where after 4 p.m. yesterday, a bunch of agitators decided to show up for their weekly Saturday night riot and went on for multiple hours on end. And as a matter of fact, if you're regular viewers of the channel, you should already know about this, because earlier in the week, we were actually talking about how Portland Antifa and even other organizations were seeking to basically infiltrate the No Kings protest movement as a way to shield their violence among the so-called peaceful protesters. And yet, what did you see? Millions of, well, not even millions, probably thousands, right, of useful idiot Democrat voters going out yesterday, holding signs, defending their Democrat Party as Antifa, or, wearing shirts saying, "I am Antifa," trying to paint this as some type of peaceful anti-fascism movement, when in reality, what did all of those crowds of people do yesterday? Endorse the very violent communists who took to the streets right after the old geriatrics went home at about 1 p.m. and the mainstream media turned off the cameras and started committing violence in the United States of America. So here we go again. We'll tell you all about it. We'll explain exactly what happened, because this is getting virtually no coverage, and yet it is pretty mainstream, prevalent news, is it not? If you're going to do these hour-long news coverage of how peaceful the No Kings protests were, isn't it a pretty obvious undermining of that spinning and that narrative that it just wasn't peaceful? Anyways, we'll get into it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work and ensure that we can keep doing these videos. And with that said, here is just simply one example of it. We'll go kind of in the best chronological order that I can put together. As Nick Sortor reported yesterday at only 4 p.m. in Portland, the protests did indeed begin to start rioting, which resulted in the deployment of tear gas. And let's just take a look again as these No Kings protests got so peaceful. And by the way, we'll point this out later because the local news is going to confirm it. But this is don't think these are separate events. This is the very crowd who went to the No Kings Portland protest in some public park. They marched down to the ICE facility, and immediately this is what happened next. Okay, so don't pretend like this is some separate event. No, these are the No Kings protesters doing exactly this. Again, immediately as the cameras turned off at about 1 p.m., the mainstream media basically said the whole thing is over. Look what they did next. And it also kind of raises a serious question as to journalistic integrity. Why exactly you wouldn't stay posted to see, what happens when the crowd quote unquote dissipates? Actually, where are they going? Now, later in the night, you can see the situation. This totally peaceful protest looks like a full-out war zone. And I want to bring this up in particular because Sortor and other journalists on the ground were talking about how there was like a back-and-forth exchange where, because obviously they're going to paint the narrative from the liberal side that, oh, well, it's just innocent, peaceful protesters being tear gassed. But hopefully those of you who watch the channel are well enough acute and understanding of this by now to know that is virtually never actually the case. And you can actually see how munitions get thrown back and forth. So protesters are throwing things at the federal agents. The federal agents are like shooting tear gas in return. And it's kind of hard to tell, but you can see parts of that on this video. So check it out, right? So it's kind of hard to see where some of these sparks are coming from particularly, but then you see like stuff starts flying this way, it looks like, right? And then this guy, what's he approaching for? Right? And then look at that. So you see things, right, getting thrown back at the federal agents, but these people are going to sit there and, of course, say that they are entirely peaceful protesters. Look at that. It looks like a war zone, right? Of course, they say, you know, they keep trying to tell President Trump, war-ravaged Portland is such an exaggeration. What is wrong with you? It's completely peaceful. What did Jimmy Kimmel say the other day? Actually, let's play that right now, right? Nothing is going on. Nothing to see here.
Antifa is just short for anti-fascist. It's not a club you can join. There are no membership dues, but they have matching signs. I'm going to tell you this. Spread it around. There's no chaos in Portland. None. There is no chaos in Chicago. There was no chaos in Los Angeles. They're pretending there's chaos as a pretense for a military takeover. But I'm open-minded. If there is chaos in these cities Trump calls hellholes, let's see it and decide if something needs to be done about it.
Okay, well, first of all, we've well established on the channel, but Antifa is indeed an organization and a network of organizations with members. Now, much like Islamic terrorism, there is a decentralized nature to it, so there are certainly left-wingers outside of the formal Rose City Antifa or Antifa International or the Strike Torch Antifa network who do still commit violence, but, you know, that's just simply not true. Jimmy Kimmel, of course, recently taken off the air for telling lies. He continues to tell them again, but still, nonetheless, okay, the more important point there, there's no chaos in Portland. Hey, well, let's see the chaos, he says. He challenges us to show him the chaos, so here you have it right there. Here's another angle of that, too. You know, according to Jimmy Kimmel, this is not chaos. According to CNN, this is... Oh, but look at that peaceful protesting. Look at all this peaceful protesting going on, guys. You see, like I said, all right, so you saw it right there. I was not a conspiracy theorist. The journalists on the ground were not lying. Here you see a tear gas can get deployed at protesters. What does he do? He throws it back. So this is a back and forth exchange, right? You can see some of them are carrying like trash lids as shields against munitions or things being thrown. I mean, it goes on and on here. Yeah. No King's Day, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not forget, okay? Completely peaceful protest, guys. Yeah. Now, I will point out, I was not on the ground, obviously, so I'd like to actually let one of my friends, Jorge Ventura, over at News Nation, explain for you better what's going on there on the ground. This is as of 7:31 Pacific time last night. Still on No King's Day, still very much the same people involved. So take a listen. This was the scene in Portland that Jimmy Kimmel and Democrats claim either doesn't exist or is completely peaceful.
I have my gas mask on, but just look at the amount of tear gas being used on this crowd. Enormous amounts of it. You have the pepper ball still being fired. And look at the crowd. Many of them don't even have gas masks, and they're still in front of the ICE facility. But this is an enormous amount of tear gas. We started to notice, oh, look at that pop. We started to notice the agents put it on their gas masks. That's how we knew it could be deployed. But look at the crowd control munitions. The crowd is only getting more aggressive here.
Jorge, are those flashbang grenades being deployed by the federal agents that we hear, or are those fireworks being thrown from the protesters?
Right now, Alex, those are flashbangs. You see that? They're throwing them from the roof. We have the flashbangs and also pepper ball crowd control munitions. I just saw one individual throw back a flashbang back to the federal agents. This is just a back and forth. We have not seen these type of clashes since we've been on the ground. I apologize if it's hard to hear it, but we need to have the gas mask on in order to... Wow, look at this. The amount of flashbangs. Some of the individuals are driving the flashbangs and throwing them right back at the federal agents.
No, we can hear you just fine, Jorge. We're seeing the strobe lights. Can you explain where those strobe lights are coming from? Is that the agents trying to, again, use tactics to clear them out?
Yeah, that's coming from the agents, Alex. We're going to back away just a bit here.
Yeah, maintain your distance.
You can follow me here. Look at this view right here. Look, this guy's trying to kick the tear gas. Alex, so far we have not seen this amount of crowd control munitions used on the protesters. There's this woman right here, she doesn't even have a gas mask, she's yelling at the agents. This guy just kicked the tear gas. Yeah, look at that tear gas canister right here. There's a few here. And that's all the agents there on the roof. They have a spotlight on us, but wow, quite the scenes right now. in Portland. It is still very early here on the West Coast, only 7:33 local time. I do right now, Alex, hear the federal helicopter right above the amphitheater. Another flashbang there.
Gee, what do you know? On the supposed peaceful protest day at only 7:30 p.m. local time, it looks like a war zone, right? War-ravaged Portland, as he's been saying, as our president's been saying. You see it right there. And yet, why exactly does the national media not acknowledge it? They claim, oh, it's completely peaceful, it's fine. Well, I'd like to point out, notice how you never see any of these people on the ground, right? You'll see occasionally local news, News Nation, Jorge Ventura, he's a good guy. He's been doing a lot of this kind of protest coverage for years, even before he was at that network. Okay, real patriot. And there's the independent conservative journalists like Nick Sortor, Nick Shirley, Katie Davis Court, many others. But by and large, right, the very people, for instance, sitting in the White House press briefing room, never actually go to Portland to surveil it. They just simply say, oh, well, it's peaceful because our local affiliate said that it was. Well, you were never there. So again, how can you call a protest peaceful when you can clearly see, aside from a handful of reporters not at truly mainstream networks, because I still consider like News Nation to be an up-and-coming kind of brand, right? They're never present there.
So my question for all of you is, how would you feel if every time you showed up to work, masked militants tried to kill you? Because that's how we feel. That's our lived reality. And you guys go and tell us that we're liars, the riots aren't that bad, right? I've never seen any of you guys on the ground. In fact, I've never seen anybody representing the companies you work for on the ground. You guys come to us for interviews that never get published. Stop saying we're lying. We're not. We risk our lives every day to do the job that you guys are too afraid to do.
Yeah, exactly right. And by the way, why do many of these mainstream media reporters not want to show up, besides the fact that they're obviously on the side of Antifa and they're trying to cover up the fact that it is a very violent situation, which should be obvious? But I'd like to make an alternative point. Perhaps it's because deep down they know and they've seen how Antifa treats legitimate journalists, right? A lot of times when you're trying to film them in the process of their rioting or their behavior, they'll get aggressive, they'll assault you, right? Andy Ngo, a very infamous situation, but we've shown you others in recent memory, right? Katie Davis Court, the affiliate who now works under Andy Ngo, same thing happened. Nick Sortor, Nick Shirley, basically every single person who's been on the ground covering the Antifa situation for real has faced that pressure. And so on one hand, these media reporters, the mainstream ones, are saying that the situation is peaceful, but on the other hand, they seem visibly too scared to go, right? So which one is it? And then, of course, they scream at Trump, it's peaceful. Okay, as Cam Higby points out, why don't you go there then? Why don't you check it out? Why? Because it's too dangerous? How could it be too dangerous if it was actually a completely peaceful situation, right? And of course, this is actually the journalistic intimidation is a common tactic that Antifa uses, so that way it doesn't become a national news story in terms of what's happening, because many of the mainstream national journalists are not willing to go there because it's so dangerous. So anyways, just wanted to point that out. Furthermore, you can further see that at least 3 arrests were made yesterday, although in true Portland police fashion, you can surely assume what happens next. But Andy Ngo reports, as one example, violent Portland Trantifa prostitute, and this is actually true, like this individual has a prostitution website, Michael Patrick Bakes, now Michelle Paulette Bakes, was now arrested on October 18th by Portland police for punching a woman who was counter-protesting outside of the ICE facility. Bakes has been a regular fixture at the riots, and I exclusively revealed that he rented the U-Haul to transport a huge amount of riot supplies to the occupiers on the street. And this is that photo, by the way, of him assaulting the woman who was counter-protesting. But of course, as you could expect, he was immediately released without bail. He was officially booked in Wokistan as a quote-unquote female. Now, again, you say it's peaceful, yet you show me this image, and clearly that's not the case. You say also that there's no grand Portland conspiracy by the police department and by the local mayor and all the city government to, of course, collude and cover up and defend the violent Antifa and Trantifa in the street, and yet you see this pattern over and over again, right? What happens? Immediately released without bail. Go figure. On October 18th as well, far-left rioters gathered to attack the Portland ICE facility during and after the No Kings protests. Mark Allen Lee, another individual, was arrested for assault and harassment. As you could expect, guess what happens next? He was quickly released without bail. So all I could basically sum this up as is Portland PD's minor attempt to make it look like, oh, we're doing something. Hey, we're arresting people. This is not a lawless, chaotic city. Please, Mr. Trump, don't send the troops. It's not necessary. They're lying to you about Portland. But we know what they do next. Hey, let's put you in handcuffs to make it look like we did something. And then what happens? All right, back out on the streets. Feel free to go riot the same exact night. There is indeed a third arrest outside of the Portland facility on October 18th. Stacy Ann Pritchard, 32, was arrested on suspicion of harassment and a second-degree bias crime. Not exactly sure what the story might be behind that one. But with that said, I want you to take a listen now as the local CBS news station in Portland tries to frame the situation as kind of peaceful, as nonchalant. Notably, they show up late. Okay, after that chaos, finally it starts raining and the crowd starts to dissipate. And then the local news is on the ground. Again, national media, nowhere to be seen. Local news is late, so they show up and they say, oh, whoa, it looks fine to me now, right? Don't know what happened a couple of hours ago. But even then, they can't really sit there and justify it. So let's play this for you right here.
Welcome to Coin 6 News at 11. I'm Lisa Balick. Protests in Portland and in dozens of other cities in Oregon and Southwest Washington relatively peaceful during the daytime, but that's not the case outside the ICE facility in South Portland tonight.
What do we tell you? What do we tell you, right? The moment the geriatrics went home, everything gets violent. But the geriatrics and their geriatric mainstream cable news media say, look, 10 a.m. Everyone, no one has burned anything yet, okay? Nothing to see here. Democrats are peaceful. They just love the flowers. Never mind the signs, by the way, where they're openly calling for violence. No, everything's fine. And then look what happens next. Very interesting.
Tear gas, pepper bullets are being deployed for several hours. Our Ariel Salk out there live. Ariel, tell us the latest, and has that rain really put any kind of a damper on things?
Yeah, so right now, actually, federal... Tuesday night? Yeah, so, sorry, Lisa, right now we're having a situation of a handful of federal agents have just exited the building. You can see them tear gassing a few protesters right there. They're moving forward. We're standing right over here just to get a good look of what's going on. Definitely using tear gas pretty liberally. We're going to back up a little bit right now. We're going to put on our gas. So we're keeping our distance right here. You can feel that pepper spray in the air. There's a lot less people here. I think the rain really pushed a lot of people out. Not sure exactly why they're doing this. It could potentially be a shift change, which is what we saw maybe 30 minutes ago, an hour ago, where they pushed a lot of these protesters away from the front of the building so somebody could get their car in and out of the building. But definitely a liberal use of that pepper spray, getting people to get away from that area. We also saw at least one of the people detained released earlier, but like I said, a lot more people are here, and a lot of them came from that No Kings parade. Take a look.
What did I tell you? Oh no, these are just random people. No, this is the No Kings event, right? This is just the continuation of it, as you could expect, right? What else is new?
Make your way to the march route if you are marching.
Thousands of people taking to the streets in Portland for the No Kings March, a demonstration opposing President Donald Trump and his policies, a nationwide movement. Coin 6 spoke with a retired Portland teacher.
Every time we came to the form of government unit with the 11-year-olds and we'd get to fascism and authoritarianism and communism, and they would, in kids' words, they would cringe. They knew that this was wrong, and I hope that most of them are engaged voters.
Oh, really? You should say that to the communists at this protest about to continue their militant revolution on the streets of your city. Oh, but you won't. You won't, because you're a useful idiot like the rest of them.
The protesters flooding the streets of downtown Portland, crossing both the Hawthorne and Morrison bridges, shutting them both down to cars.
I hope that people will just be able to see that we are not a war-torn city, that we're actually a healthy, happy, joyful city.
The march.
Everyone point and laugh, all right? Take a look at what goes down next. Just a few hours later. Wow, that dissipated quickly. Yeah.
Lasting in downtown Portland for about 3 hours. Then many of them headed to the ICE building in South Portland. Federal agents waiting for them. Tensions rising. The crowd in the street, on the sidewalk, outside of ICE. Blocking the vehicle entrance at times. Federal agents used tear gas and pepper bullets to push them back. We saw 2 people detained by federal agents. Portland police arresting several people as well. Portland police posting on their social media saying the 3 people they detained were booked into the Multnomah County Jail on criminal charges, including assault, bias crime, and harassment.
Right, so again, there's the local news verifying everything that we tried to tell you. Early in the day, they were going to sit there in front of the geriatrics and all the school teachers and stuff. We're going to try to say, oh, this is a completely peaceful protest. You know, we're just a hippie city. We love the flowers. We love smoking weed. Everything is just all right, right? And then hours later, what happens? Those same people, as they pointed out, it's not a different crowd of people. The same people who came from No Kings storm to the ICE facility and they start rioting. Many such cases. It's almost like even when the spotlight is on them and there's a little internal memo like, hey, act peaceful for the cameras. You know, we need to kind of display this message nationally. Turns out left-wingers are so violent, they can't even contain that sort of impulse in them. Okay? So there you have it, right? Again, in Portland, mass violence erupts, and I will repeat the question, where's the national media? You know, where is CNN? And you would think, by the way, since they're so obsessed, guys, with proving Trump wrong and fact-checking everything, why is Caitlin Collins or any of these people not gone to Portland for themselves and see what's happening, right? Prove him wrong. Go. I dare you, right? Oh, they won't do it because they know he's right. Very interesting. Worth noting, too, by the way, that Portland is not even the only place that we saw violence at No Kings protest. Turns out yesterday that Alex Stein was assaulted by lunatics at the Dallas No Kings march. So, you know, it's a nationwide epidemic of completely peaceful protesting here.
Oh, he got assaulted. Oh, call police. Holy.
Yep. Again. Peaceful protesters, peace-loving hippies, guys, totally. Here's a great interview with the Dallas Express of a guy who self-identifies as Antifa. I'm not sure if he's officially part of an Antifa network, but as I said, it's just like Islamic terrorism. You have random copycats and you have the formal organizations, and it falls under the same umbrella, right? But this guy who was present at the Dallas No Kings event, again, we're told Antifa doesn't exist, and here he is right here, okay? We found Antifa, guys. We found the idea, walking in human form. How could this be the case? But very interestingly, you know, he won't give his name, but he admits he travels nationwide to Portland and other cities, which really begs the question, I mean, where's he getting the money for doing that? But I don't know, check it out.
I traveled the country. I went to Florida, I went to Missouri, I've been to Indiana, Texas, Oklahoma, Washington, Portland, and I'm here to spread anti-fascism because America was never fascist and it never will be. Not as long as any anti-fascist lives.
Okay. Who do you consider to be a fascist in your eyes?
Well, currently, the whole Trump administration may not be entirely fascist at this point, but they're quickly going towards authoritarianism and totalitarianism. But that's all. That's the only comment that I'm going to be giving. I'm going to keep.
Oh, really? You've traveled the country, you say? That's interesting. I wonder how you're doing that. But I would like to point out, you might have noticed something. He is carrying the official flag of Antifa, right? This is something that we are told does not exist. Now, interestingly, you see this flag less these days, largely because Rose City Antifa, the Strike Network, many others are kind of scared of federal crackdown, so they're trying to like retreat from an organized identity. But keep in mind, okay, this is something you saw a lot during Trump 1, and it is the official logo of anti-fascist action, which is not some random thing that some leftist made in their basement. No, this is a copycat of the original official logo that originates from the KPD, right? The Communist Party of Germany back in the 1920s and early 30s, which was founded, right, called Anti-Fascist Action, translated in German, as a violent, militant, communist organization designed to take to the streets and actively engage in like paramilitary style behavior and militancy, right? They clash with Nazis, which is why they're celebrated, but also worth noting, they clash with pro-democracy groups, moderate conservatives, moderate social liberals, social democrats, all of those things, because why? They were violent, revolutionary communists, and that is exactly what this flag represents. It again originates directly from a communist party. It's still used by communists in the United States today who engage in much of the same exact violent militant behavior that they were back in Germany, right? And, interestingly, despite their celebration, oh, the communists were good because they were fighting Nazis. I mean, just because one thing is bad doesn't mean the other thing's not also bad. But it's further, historically even interesting to point out the way in which one could argue these lunatics actually made the Nazis much more popular because they were running around the Weimar Republic just mass committing violence. A lot of people were scared. They were genuinely terrified. They were terrified of the prospect, perhaps, that Germany could fall to the same fate as the Romanovs and the Russian royal family, the Orthodox churches, and all the normal civilians who were just caught up in the utter chaos and destruction that the Bolsheviks caused. And, this is frankly like a trend of history almost. Leftists come along, they agitate, they cause a bunch of problems, and then, the normal sane people try to save it. And if they don't succeed, ultimately you get a more and more extreme reaction. And ultimately, who caused the entire problem to begin with? The communists, right? The violent revolutionary leftists who just could not leave well enough alone and are constantly trying to destabilize society, which has really bad consequences. So, this is to say these guys, this flag, okay, do not associate them in any ways with being good guys because even if they were against Nazis, no. These are like the bad guys of history. Again, you can make a strong case. These guys are the reasons why the Nazis became popular with the average citizen. Not the only one, but yes, like political violence in the streets was a big reason why people became radicalized to what you might call the far right because the far left was doing all these things. And, one side said, we're going to bring order. We're going to stop these people. So, just something kind of interesting about history to point out there. So yeah, worth noting that not only did we see actual violence at the No Kings protests yesterday, but what was perhaps much more prevalent than that was the open endorsing of that same violence by the supposedly peaceful, normal liberal members of the Democrat Party's voter base. And this is the point I've been trying to make the entire time. I've been trying to tell you, by the way, these Democrat politicians who claim they broadly condemn political violence, but we're not going to be specific about where it's coming from or who's doing it, they say that for a reason. Because they openly are coddling and kind of covertly even working alongside Antifa and the militant left. And the same is true, by the way, of even the No Kings protesters who themselves don't want to get in trouble. But when you break down and ask them, hey, how do you really feel about the violent people? They'll tell you, right? We saw multiple signs yesterday openly celebrating Antifa, right? Saying, I am Antifa. And we just showed you that again, right? Shirts of people who probably are not even in the official Antifa organization declaring themselves to be that, to show solidarity with the violent communists. And of course, many other scenes like this that you might notice of people who dressed up and came to the No Kings rally dressed as Tyler Robinson, the Charlie Kirk assassin, wearing that exact same outfit. And that is right. The party of peace, ladies and gentlemen, the party that condemns political violence, but let's just glorify the politically violent people. And this old geriatric doing it even. And then this old geriatric's going to say, oh, we're peaceful. What political violence? I have no idea. Really? You mean to tell me you have no idea? Okay? This is why I don't just write off a lot of like the geriatric Democrats as, oh, they're just brainwashed because they watch too much MSNBC. No, you have to like know things. He knows exactly what he's doing. He is an inherently violent, deranged, insane person. He just doesn't want to do it himself, right? He's a coward, so he's going to kind of live vicariously through the young, violent radicals and show how much he supports them. And then have the nerve to wave the American flag in the process. But of course, what are Marxists in this country currently trying to do? Hijack American greatness and American symbols. This is why they say the World War II soldiers were Antifa, or the Founding Fathers were the No Kings. But anyways, you want any symbol of everything yesterday in the No Kings protest, look at this guy right here, right? You know, he's in the front row. No one next to him says, dude, what the heck is wrong with you? You're vile, you're scum, why are you doing it? No, because they all feel the same way. Every single one of these people are complicit. Every single one of these people are, again, as I've been saying, the useful idiots for the communists, if not openly a part of the communists themselves. And there you go. With that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.